what my defining career moment was, that was what it was. Because until Khalifa Fund, every career move I had made was about me. What am I going to learn? Will this look good on my CV? How much will I earn? You know, prestige, everything. And then I joined Khalifa Fund, my first job in the private sector. And I didn't really know what to expect. I had heard a lot of stories about working in the private sector, but I had never tried it myself. So, I went in with a very open mind. In fact, I think of it as serendipitous because I actually never applied to Khalifa Fund. I just got a call one day and said, you have an interview with the CEO of Khalifa Fund. I said, what's Khalifa Fund? Looked it up online. It was a very basic website. Went for the interview. As they say, when you have a conversation and this is it. So I had a great conversation with the CEO, and I thought this is an amazing opportunity. So I joined, and I have to tell you, it was the most fulfilling. I left now. I left about a year ago, but it was the most fulfilling 3 years of my life, despite having worked in companies like McKinsey and Shell and so on. Because the focus suddenly was less on myself and more on others, and how I could give back to others, and how I could basically use all the skills and the experience that I had gained to help other entrepreneurs. Eventually, after 3 years at Khalifa Fund, I basically got bitten by the entrepreneurship bug and decided to leave and start my own company.
Is it working out? You're doing well?
Define working out. But I went for an interview yesterday with the American Embassy, and just for the visa. So the guy asked me, so what do you do? And I said, I'm self-employed. He said, okay, so you have your own company? I said, yeah. He said, so how much have you made so far? I said, not much, zero. So you have to start from somewhere. That's my point, that you don't start making $1 million. I know entrepreneurship is a very sexy word, and innovation is a sexy word, but you have to start from scratch.
Yeah,
and it's a lot of hard work.
Seen in the high-tech world, there's been an awful lot of promise. Sometimes not a huge amount of profit.
Yeah, and it's early days. I mean, it's been 6 months now since I've established it, and so I'm still doing the groundwork. But so in terms of is it working out, I think for me the criteria is twofold. One, at the end of the day, do I feel like I've made a difference in people's lives? Yes. And at the start of every morning, do I look forward to going to work? And the answer is yes to both of those. So for me, it's a home run.
It's great being your own boss.
It really is.
Right. Now, Christina, you were saying to me earlier that you think that one of the really important things for entrepreneurship is having the right kind of environment in which you can work. And explain a little bit more about that, talk about that a bit, and also in terms of the way that it works for female entrepreneurs. Do you think it's different to the way it might work for male entrepreneurs?
Sure. So I absolutely believe that to be the case, that it's kind of like real estate in entrepreneurship, that location is actually very important. There's something to be said for the fact that we find high densities of entrepreneurs together. We find them in Silicon Valley. I'm from Seattle. We certainly have a strong entrepreneurial community there in Seattle. We find a strong biotech sector in Boston. And what's fascinating and been really interesting for me this week is as we look at environmental engineering and the future of sustainable energy, I think there is an opportunity for entrepreneurship that's being created right here in the UAE. And so it's made me think, because in fact I didn't set out to become an entrepreneur in my own career. I'm a scientist. I had every intention of getting a graduate degree in maybe teaching or doing research, but I encountered a problem that was appropriate to me. And I couldn't let go of that problem. And I'm still here trying to solve that problem and trying to realize the vision that we have created around that problem. And it's really the environment that was created that allowed us the opportunity of pursuing that problem and seeing it hopefully to its fruition that I think makes the difference. And I think it's a commitment that our nation has made to entrepreneurship. It's certainly a commitment that the UAE has made to sustainability and to entrepreneurship. We see it in His Highness Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the President of UAE's commitment to security in this region, to a stable, modern Muslim government. We see it in the commitment to the Khalifa Fund. We see it this week in this conference, and we see it in a commitment to strong, stable financial systems that really allow this kind of opportunity to take place. And so I look at that and I think I'm really fortunate to be an entrepreneur where I am an entrepreneur. And I hope that there are women here in this audience that are inspired, that you're in a location where that really can happen. And more than anything, that I think that forum is critical in cultivating that forum. But I want to say one thing that is a challenge that exists in that forum, and that is that for what we're doing at Lodge Metal, which is revolutionizing the steel industry, and certainly in a lot of the themes that we've talked about this week and will continue to talk about this week, there are technical challenges at the core of some of these opportunities, and it's a challenge that both of our communities face, both in the U.S. and in the UAE, that we have woeful underrepresentation of women in science, technology, and engineering jobs that are going to help solve these challenges. We've been very successful in creating educational systems that encourage women to participate, but for some reason that's not translating into jobs. We have almost 50% of the STEM education that is female, but only about 25% of the population of the STEM population in the United States is actually women in terms of jobs. 1 out of every 7 engineers is a woman, and that's a really big challenge when you're talking about entrepreneurship in an environment where technology plays a role.
I mean, let me be a devil's advocate on that. I imagine 1 out of every 30 midwives is a male, maybe even less than that. I mean, so does it matter that 1 out of 7 engineers is only that is female? I mean, maybe it's just comfortable to have women in men's roles, women in women's roles, men in men's roles.
Do you want me to address that question?
Yeah, I mean, devil's advocate there, I'm asking you.
You asked the question earlier about defining moments in our career. I stopped and thought about what was a defining moment in my own career. And I had the opportunity to live in Russia for a year, working on actually environmental restoration there, and had a chance to work with a group of engineers, actually completely unrelated to my field. They were working for Intel, and they were trying to solve a particular problem. It turns out if you buy an Intel chip, maybe a decade ago, there would have been a piece of hardware that did a fast Fourier transform. You couldn't do it in software. It was deemed to be impossible by mathematicians. You couldn't get the algorithms to converge fast enough. And so Intel brought in a group of engineers, and it engaged a group of Russian engineers, and they said, look, we want to try to see if we can solve this problem. And they didn't think they were going to solve it. And it turns out that because the Russians just had a different set of tools, they had a different approach to how they solve problems. And they figured it out. And it was a huge deal. It was a really big deal for the industry. It was a really big deal. It was written up in a bunch of math journals. And the point is that we bring different perspectives to a problem, and we find solutions in unexpected ways. Women approach problem solving differently than men. And if we have a scientific field that is overwhelmingly male, that's going to influence the kinds of solutions we arrive at. We will be missing some of the best talent in our population if only a small sampling of that population is actually participating in solving these really hard problems.
Right. And Hessa, you're Director of Development Research at Dubai Women's Establishment. Now, within an organisation, in terms of the training that's possible, is it possible to be an entrepreneur within an organisation rather than simply setting up on your own somewhere? Can you, within your division or the particular part that you work in, can you behave in an entrepreneurial way? Are there forms of training that can be directed, at women especially, to encourage them to take those kinds of roles?
Well, I think that the ladies, what they go through is very much similar, because what we focus on as a bio establishment are women in the workforce, whether government or private sector. What we don't look at as entrepreneurs business councils does. So, but considering that they are women, they go through the same challenges in a way. The way you just mentioned, different sectors. Yes, you can see a number of women focusing on some sectors, and that's also maybe back to what the budget referred to before, it's culture or stereotype or how we raise our kids. Plus, there's also what you just mentioned regarding utilizing. We're talking today about sustainability and the resources and how we can make use of whatever is available. Women are also part of the nation. Today we're talking about the population of the UAE. 50% are women. And the majority we have are between the age of 25 to 55 years old, who are at the age of working. So you want to utilize the whole population in different sectors. And by neglecting or, let's say, focusing on a gender rather than another, this would be like not utilizing the whole resources. Being an entrepreneur within your organization, and talk here about what personal experience that I went through, that Dr. Gamal was part of that story. A few years back in the organization, we were thinking about introducing a new program for Emirati women in the workforce. It was something different than these training programs that are conducted locally. We thought, yes, let's do something international, kind of a boot camp, and take these women from different sectors, whether health, economy, banking sector, engineering, and put them all in a farm in part of Scandinavia, where they are one of the highest ranking countries in the world in gender gap and meeting gender balanced economy. It worked very well. We did it with a Scandinavian organization. They were exposed to different sectors from that part of the world as well, and people from private and government sectors. They spent around 3 months together, whether they're in Sweden or here in the UAE. They exchanged lots of knowledge, lots of expertise, and lots of personal stories where you can learn from each other. It's not only the theoretical part or the practice in the offices, but also what happens outside there. Because women are very much, as Dalia mentioned earlier, yes, there is, what's the fine line between work and life for us to succeed? During my office hours, I speak to my kids, and then I answer another call from my mom, and I know what's happening for lunch, and then I want solve a math homework with my son by sending him the answer or the way of solving that problem through WhatsApp. So we do this as women. I don't know if you do that with your kids, but I do when I travel sometimes. We do homework on the phone. So it's work and love, and they exchanged that during that time. We came back 2 years later. Few women of that program actually are today board member in that network, which is based in Sweden. I was part of the initiation stage where Dr. Noman was part of at that time in 2010. Yes, last year, a few months back, actually last May, I was elected as a chairperson for that network for the first time. And non-Swedish person is elected as a chairperson for that network, which is an NGO based in Stockholm. So I can see it growing through, yes, the government sector. I do work for government sector, but we do interact with different fields. What I see lacking related to entrepreneurs and focusing on Emirati entrepreneurs is that international exposure. All of the government, as you mentioned, is supporting it. But how women are perceiving themselves or pushing themselves or making themselves at least visible for the international market, here comes the question.
Let's try and take a question, shall we?